Jai Hind students, this is Vivek speaking. In today's class, we shall revise the sixth chapter, Weathering the Storm in Ersama from Moments. Children, some of the students who could not attend the class live due to network irregularity, for those, this chapter is being revised. And before going through this chapter, I would like to inform you that from now, no vignettes, word meanings or questions and answers will be given by me. All the students will have to write the vignette on their own. After writing the vignette, 10 word meanings as usual you will have to write, and then you will write the questions and answers on your own. Though the questions and answers will be discussed in the classroom. Well, these things are to be written in the fair notebook only after completion of the text, means the story or the chapter, in the physical classes. Now let us start this story. So here this story is written by Harsh Mandir, and the theme is based on the super cyclone which hit in 1999 on Odisha at the coastal town of Ersama, where a Prashant of about 19 years of age outshows his courage, bravery, and wit. There are only first and last character Prashant with its name. The rest of the characters are not named in the story. And the message is, if we have will, we can do whatever we wish. So children, I told you the important things that you are supposed to write in vignette. Now let us go through the line and find what is given in that. Here it is before you on the screen, the title of the story, Weathering, which is here verbalized. Weather is a noun. Here you can see what I have highlighted, and with addition of ing it is verbalized. And weathering the storm in Ersama. Ersama is a place in Orissa. It is a coastal place which is at the end of ocean, located at the end of the ocean. So here, before we read the paragraph, certain rubrics are given. Let us see this. I would like to read for you. The cyclone that hit Odisha in October 1999 killed thousands of people and devastated hundreds of villages. For two dreadful nights, means horrible nights, Prashant, who is the central character in the story, a young man, was marooned on the roof of a house, means he was sitting on the roof of the house, sitting close with other people so that he may protect himself from biting wind and cold. On the third day, he decided to go to his village. Did he find his way? So this is the question before we heading towards this paragraph. The question is, did he find his way? Means Prashant is there stuck somewhere, and he had to find his way to his family, his home. Let us see whether he got his way or not. Here the story starts. On 27th October 1999, 7 years after his mother's death, means Prashant's mother's death, Prashant had gone to the block headquarters of Ersama. Something which is very important in this story must highlight here: block headquarters of Ersama, which may come in examination. Where had Prashant gone? So you will answer block headquarters of Ersama. It is a small town in coastal Orissa, some 18 kilometers from his village. So this distance is also significant. And he went there to spend a day. to spend the day with a friend. In the evening, a dark and menacing here dangerous storm quickly gathered. So you know what happens when the storm or the cloud gathers, dark cloud gathers, that shows everything is going to be disturbed. So that was the scene visible there. And winds beat against the houses with the speed of fury. Fury means angry, means very fast, that Prashant had never witnessed before. Witnessed means he had never seen or experienced that speed of wind before. Heavy and incessant. Incessant means something which is not stopping, continuously going on. So heavy and incessant rain filled the darkness. Ancient trees were on the next page uprooted. Ancient means very old. Ancient here, I must highlight it. Uprooted and crashed on the earth means fallen on the earth. Screams rent the air as people and houses were swiftly washed away. Means air was so fast that people and houses were moved with the fast blowing water and air, and people for this reason were screaming to fight for their balance and saving their life. The angry waters swirling means moving round and round into his friend's house. Swirling here you would have seen when the water is filled in sink or basin, it goes down round and round without any movement made by anybody because of some kind of force that we would have read in physics, which pulls the water itself wherever it gets the passage through. So that is showing swirling, it is whirling into his friend's house, means the angry water which was moving badly and was getting into the house, and it was filling the areas surrounded to it, and the depth of the water was here mentioned neck deep. The building was of brick and mortar. Mortar means mixture of cement and sand that you apply on the walls for plastering it when you label it up, and was strong enough to survive the devastation, means destruction. Since the wall made up of bricks and mortars was strong enough, so it was there sufficient to survive the devastation of the wind's velocity of 350 km per hour. This velocity may also come in examination. But the cold terror means the frightening thing, the most frightening thing for them was of the family grew with the crashing of trees that had gone uprooted and fallen on their house, sometime in the middle of the night, damaging its roof walls. So the cold terror was that any tree may fall on their house because it was getting uprooted, since it was filled with water. The root was weak. So that was the worry that any time the house might be crushed by the trees. That was the biggest problem for them. Let us move to the next paragraph. Let us see here. The crazed destruction. The destruction is here written with the word crazed, means crazy, because it was something unusual that happened there at the coastal ground of Ersama in Odisha. So it is said crazed. The crazed destruction means when something is destroyed, wrought by the cyclone and the surge of the ocean. Surging means when the level of water goes up, rises. And here wrought means formed in a shape. So there is a destruction had made everything in a shape. You know very well how it would be looking like when everything was would be destroyed anyway. So the things was shown, seen by Prashant, and it happened due to cyclone. And the surge means high raising water was seen in the ocean, and it was continued for next 36 hours. Although wind speed had reduced somewhat by the next morning. To escape the waters rising in the house, Prashant and his friend's family had taken refuge on roofs. So you know very well in this paragraph here we have read that he had his house filled neck deep. Here it is neck deep. His friend's house was filled with water neck deep. So to save themselves, they had gone upon the roof to take refuge, means to protect themselves. They had gone to the roof and they were sitting there. Prashant will never forget the shock he experienced at his first glimpse, means view, of the devastation wrought by the super cyclone in the grey light of the early morning. A raging, means violent, deadly brown sheet of water covered everything as far as the eyes could see. So here, wherever he was looking, it was looking brown sheet of water covered everything as far as he could see. Next is only fractured cement, means cracking or crevices or gaps found on the wall, that was only visible. Only fractured cement. Houses still stood in a few places, means rest of the things had been destroyed or blown away. Bloated means swelled in water. Bloated animal carcasses means dead bodies of animals. And human corpse means dead bodies of humans floated in every direction, all around. Even huge old trees had fallen. Two coconut trees had fallen on the roof of their house. This was a blessing in disguise. So here it is very important line why it is said blessing in disguise. If something is fallen on the house, these two coconut trees had fallen on the house, on the roof of the house, and even after this it is written here this was a blessing in disguise. Why it is so? It is so because there was nothing to consume, to eat, and at least they were having the coconut tree and the fruit which was on the coconut tree that they were able to consume. So it was a blessing, though it was disguised. Disguise means everything was destroyed, so it is bad. But at least they were having food, coconut food to survive on. Because the tender coconut from the trees kept the trapped family from starving. At least they were not starved. Means starving means when you are having appetite, you want food. So here they were starving and they got this coconut fruit and they could save their life in the next several days that followed. Let us move to next paragraph. For the next 2 days, Prashant sat huddled, means sitting close with his friends, family in open on the roof, as I told you, because the rooms or the house, entire house was filled with water neck deep. So everybody in the family were sitting on the roof to protect themselves. They froze in the cold and incessant rain. Incessant, I told you, continuous rain. The rain was water washed away Prashant's tears, means Prashant was crying. The only thought that flashed through his mind was whether his family had survived the fury, means the anger of the super cyclone. Was he to be bereaved, means once again going to lose somebody's of his own or family once again? So he was just worrying about his family members whether they are alive. Next is 2 days later, which seemed to Prashant like 2 years. Means he had lived there at his friend's house for 2 days due to super cyclone, and these 2 days were like 2 years for him. The rain ceased, means it stopped, and the rainwaters slowly began to recede, means it was getting down. The level of water, flood water, was getting down. Prashant was determined to seek out his family without further delay. But situation was still dangerous and his friend's family pleaded, means requested, with Prashant to stay back a little while longer. But Prashant knew he had to go. He equipped himself with a long, sturdy, means strong, stout or thick stick and then started on his 18-kilometer expedition. As I told you, his house was 18 kilometers away from his friend's block headquarters and in Ersama. And that is why it is called, this long distance is called expedition, which means journey, long journey back to his village through the swollen water floods. It was a journey he would never forget. He constantly had to use his stick to locate the road because everything was filled with water. See, you can see here how he was walking through the water. He was having water his waist deep. Here, the stick is in his hand, which he had taken to locate the road so that he may move on a right path. Where the water was most shallow, means where it was less water, there he was trying to go through. At places it was waist deep, as you can see in the figure, and progress was slow. At several points he lost the road and had to swim. After some distance he was relieved to find two friends of his uncle who were also returning to their village. They decided to move ahead together. Here you can see he luckily found two of his uncle's friend and they were also moving to the same village Prashant was going to. So Prashant and his uncle's friend decided to go ahead together. The next paragraph is as they waded. Waded means walking in the water with heavy steps due to resistance in the water. Through the waters, the scenes that witnessed grew more and more macabre. Macabre means here frightening, very fearful. They had to push away, and then why the scene was very fearful? Here, the next line is describing this. They had to push away many human bodies, men, women, and children. So, for this reason, it was getting more macabre, means frightening, and carcasses of dogs, goats, and cattle means animals that the current swept against. Current means movement, fast movement in water, against them as they moved ahead. In every village that they passed, they could barely see, means only see a house standing. Means there was only one house standing wherever they were going through. Prashant now wept out loud and long. So this was the reason, because wherever he was going, he was looking at destruction on the top. Nothing was visible there. Everything was washed away. So Prashant had estimated in his mind that his family members and the house would also be, his house would also be uh, in the same way. He was sure that his family could not have survived his this catastrophe. Catastrophe means destruction, natural destruction. Eventually, Prashant reached his village, Kalikuda. This is the name of the village he had come from. His heart went cold, means he was very sad. When you are very sad, you become very cold, and when you are very active, you are warm. So he was very cold by heart because he knew that nobody is alive in his family. That was his speculations, means guess. Next is where there some once stood, means where there was his house someday before there were only remnants of its roof, means remainings, leftovers of his roof. Some of their belongings were caught, means the residuals, something which are found in pieces, and the remaining portions of something which is destroyed were seen by Prashant. Mangled, and whatever he had seen were twisted, damaged, means disfigured, and he twisted in the branches of trees just visible above the dark waters, nothing else. Young Prashant decided to go to the Red Cross shelter to look for his family. So he thought that he may find anybody of his family members at the Red Cross shelter, which was made to protect the people who were suffering from the flood. Next is Among the first people he saw the crowd was his maternal grandmother. Saw in the crowd was his granny, means his mother's mother. She was weak and hunger. She rushed to him, means she ran fast to him. Her hands outstretched, means she extended her arms to hug him. Her eyes brimming, means she was about to cry. Her eyes were filled with tears. It was a miracle for the family members when they saw Prashant alive. Means the family members of Prashant were also thinking that Prashant would have been dead. And it is written here as well, they had long given him up for dead. Means the family member had also thought that he was no more. Next is quickly word spread, means news of Prashant's arrival spread, and his extended family gathered around him and hugged, means embraced him tight in relief. Prashant anxiously scanned the motley, means different figures of the family members, battered. Battered means injured group, means in his family members many of the people had been injured. His brother, sister, his uncles and aunts, they all seemed to be there. By the next morning, as he took in the desperate situation, means sad situation, he is getting restless. Desperate means getting restless in the shelter. He decided to get a grip over him. As you know, that if somewhere a lot of destruction is made by any cyclone or any of the catastrophe, means natural disaster, so people will be having their hue and cry and having would be having grief and be getting desperate to find one of their own family. So in the same way, there was the scene. Everybody was desperate, means restless to find one of their family members. So here he was losing his heart, but he decided to have a grip over himself. That is the wonderful thing, which is showing that he was a courageous guy. He sensed a deathly grief settling upon 2,500 strong crowd in the shelter. It means that there in the shelter were about 2,500 people in the village who were facing this catastrophe, super cyclone. And Prashant sensed, means observed or felt that they were having deathly grief, means all were thinking that they will not be able to survive in the condition they were in the camp. Means people had thought that they are also going to die, whosoever were there in the camp, because the situation was extremely worst. Let us see what is given further in the story. Next is 86 lives were lost in the village. All the 96 houses had been washed away. It was their fourth day at the shelter. So far, they had survived on green coconuts, as I told you. There was nothing else to eat. But there were too few to go around such a tumult of people. Means a lot of crowd, tumult of people. Means there were many people and green coconuts were very less in numbers. Prashant, all of 19 years, decided to step in as leader of his village. If no one else did, he organized a group. Now, these are the things here are mentioned which were done by Prashant. So, you must pay your heed towards these paragraphs. Important questions are mostly framed from these paragraphs about what did he do there. So, here it is. He organized a group of youth and elders to jointly pressurize the merchant once again to part with his rice. Means he made a group of youth and elders who jointly requested with pressure the merchants, means businessmen, to give their food which was kept in the storeroom. Part away means to give away. This time the delegation, means group, succeeded and returned triumphantly, means with a win. They won in convincing merchant or getting rice from the merchant. And wading means they were going through water with heavy steps. Whenever you walk inside the water, having water till your neck, knee, so there you are wading in the water through the receding water which was reducing with flood for the entire shelter. So they were having the food or the rice in their arms or head, and they were carrying it through the water. No one cared that the rice was already rotting. Strange. The rice which was received by them was rotting. Branches from fallen trees were gathered to light. Reluctant means not willing, means the branches of the trees which had been fallen was collected. So if something is fallen in the water, so definitely it would be wet. So why will it be fired? Means how it will be fired? So yeah, that is why it is reluctant, means not burning, and when it was burning slowly. Next is on which the cook, which to cook the rice, means they were firing the wood taken from the fallen tree to cook rice, which was not burning properly because the wood was wet. For the first time in 4 days, the survivors at the cyclone shelter were able to fill their bellies. Means after 4 days they had eaten, and his next task was to organize a team of youth volunteers. Means those who help others without getting any benefit, to clear the shelter of filth, means dirt, urine, vomit, and floating carcasses, means dead bodies of animals, and to tend to wounds and fractures of the many who had been injured. So next task done by Prashant was that he made an organization, another group of youth volunteers who were doing on cleanliness and helping people, those who were suffering from any wound and fractures. Next is on the fifth day, a military helicopter flew over the shelter and dropped some parcels, food parcels. It then did not return, but the helicopter did not return again. The youth task force gathered empty utensils from the shelter. Then they deputed the children to lie in the sand. Here you can see what Prashant had hit upon. This is an idea. They asked the students or children to lie and some empty utensils. These are empty utensils, the plates, to put on their bellies, and it was done. Left by the waters around and the shelter with these utensils on their stomachs. Now the question is why it was got done by Prashant. It was to communicate to the passing helicopters that they were hungry. The message got through the pilots, I'm sorry, and after that the helicopter made regular rounds of the shelter, airdropping food and other basic needs. Next is Prashant found that a large number of children had been orphaned. Orphaned means those who do not have their parents. He brought them together and put up a polythene sheet shelter for them. Women were mobilized, means asked to move to look after them. Means children, those who had lost their parents, for them, Prashant asked the women to to take care and look after them, while the men secured food and materials for the shelter. And men were asked to secure food and materials for the shelter. Our next paragraph is children. As the weeks passed, Prashant was quick to recognize that women and children were sinking deeper and deeper in their grief. Means he realized that people are getting sad and getting lost in their pain. Grief means pain. He persuaded women to start. Persuaded means requested women to start work in the food for work program started by an NGO. And for the children he organized sports events. He himself loved to play cricket, and so he organized cricket matches for children. Prashant engaged other volunteers in helping the widows. Widows are the ladies, those who have lost their husbands, and children to pick up the broken pieces of their lives. Means this act of organizing match and food for work program, these acts were started by Prashant so that they may live happily with their life whatever they have. Here it is written to pick up the broken pieces of their lives. The initial government plan was to set up institutes for orphans. Those orphans means those who do not have their parents, and widows, those who do not have their husbands. However, this step was successfully resisted. Means this step of installing an institution for the orphans and widows of the government was opposed, resisted here, opposed by Prashant and the other people there in the shelter, as it was felt that in such institutions children would grow up without love, definitely, and widows would suffer from stigma. It was thought that if there will be such institutions, it would be only like a house for orphans and it would not be like a house. So the people would never feel that they are in any family or in their house. They will take it as house of orphans, and ladies or women would suffer from negative thoughts or unfair beliefs. Stigma means a set of negative and often unfair beliefs, and loneliness as well, because they will not feel their family anyway. So Prashant's idea was that instead of making the institutions for orphans and widows where there will not be any love, so he said that there should be a group. So what is written here? It is written that Prashant's group believed that orphans should be resettled in their own community itself. Means if they will be living in their community, they would be happy instead of living in any institutions installed by government. So possibly, what was the thought that possibly in new foster means here parental control, families made up of childless widows and children without adult care. Means if these new families would be made, there would be care for the child, children, and the widows would also be having a family. And if there will be any institutions, there will not be any care for the children, and the widows would also be without any family. So it was very good. Those who had lost their children, they were requested to adopt children. Those who had lost the spouse means family members, they were suggested to have their family by reuniting each other. Next is it is 6 months after the devastation of the super cyclone. This time Prashant's wounded spirit had healed. Means he was also suffering from this loss, but it was healed. Means it was recovered simply because he had no time to bother about his own pain. Now the reason why his pain was healed, because he was not looking at his pain in any way. His handsome youthful face is what the widows and the orphaned children of the village seek out most in their darkest hour of grief. Means in their painful time, darkest hour of grief, in their painful time. Whose painful time? Widows and orphaned children. In their painful time, they were always seeking Prashant, because he was having such a personality, he was having such a face, he was such a person who had resettled them all. So, children, that's all in this class. In the next class, we shall start poem No Men Are Foreign from Beehive. So you all are informed that you must go through the poem and do all the writing task that you have been doing, like writing vignette, 10 word meanings, and the questions and answers on your own in the fair notebook. With this, have a nice day. Thank you very much.